Hey guys, and welcome on into the next NHL offseason preview show. Today we're going to be talking all about the Montreal Canadiens, taking a look at their projected roster for next year, free agents they have to sign this offseason, as well as draft picks and management, and then offseason tasks, of course, at the end of the show. And today I've got a guest with me, and it is Andrew McInnis. Of course, a professional handicapper at Wager Talk, also a Montreal fan. So he knows this team very well. And that's why I was happy to bring him on in to discuss the Habs. So, Andrew, for people that haven't seen you before, maybe just give a little bit of a brief hello and introduction.
Terry, great to be here with you. I love chatting hockey with you, and it's funny talking hockey when it's nice outside here in Eastern Canada. It's beautiful weather. We're Stanley Cup Finals are almost here, and we're ready to talk about the preview for what's to come for hopefully a really exciting Montreal Canadiens summer. I'm pumped for it, as you know, and hopefully other people, everybody listening knows me. I do make it very clear I'm a Montreal Canadiens fan, but I also do consume a ton of content related to the Montreal Canadiens. So I try and, keep myself well-versed and keep my biased fan hat off. But yeah, I do a daily hockey betting show on Wager Talk TV called Puck Time. Also do some contributions with the Hockey News hockey company out of Canada. And just, producing content on a day-to-day basis, and also trying to guide people in the right direction when it comes to mostly hockey betting and CFL betting in the summer. But of course, I do dabble in MLB and NFL action as well. But a diehard Canadiens fan. I've been following the team since, I can remember being a hockey fan. And this is a team that, you won't just catch me watching games, in April or in October. I'm watching a game in the Wednesday against San Jose in the middle of November, middle of January, middle of February, whatever it might be. You know me, I'm a diehard Canadiens fan.
And that's perfect for a show like this because you know the team and you watch them obviously on a daily basis when they play. So you know what this team needs and what they need to do this offseason, which is a perfect segue. Oh, of course, Andrew's Twitter link is in the description below. So make sure to go and give him a follow there on Twitter. First segment is draft picks and management. So as you can see here, the Habs have all of their draft picks for this upcoming draft. And as well, they have extra picks. They've got Calgary's first-round pick, Pittsburgh's second-round pick, New Jersey and Vancouver's third-round pick, and Detroit's fourth. So not bothering to add extra picks in the fifth, sixth, and seventh, which really, as everyone knows, the picks you want are definitely those top two rounds, third round as well. So the Habs have a lot of draft picks this upcoming draft. General manager, head coach, no changes there. No empty spots to fill. So pretty set when it comes to management. A ton of draft picks this upcoming season. And of course, as we usually do in this segment, taking a look at offer sheet capability. The Habs have complete offer sheet capability. So they can offer any restricted free agent, any dollar amount. They have all the draft picks over the next few seasons if they wanted to add a restricted free agent by offer sheet. Andrew, quick segment here. What do you think about all these draft picks? And do you think the Habs should keep them all? Do you think maybe they should use them in a trade? What are your thoughts there?
Well, the message was be in the mix for the Montreal Canadiens from pretty much everybody at that early season, golf fundraiser and team building tournament they had at the start of the season last year. And well, they didn't just get in the mix; they made the postseason. I'm sure they would have loved to taken more than one game off of the Washington Capitals, but the goal was achieved. They weren't just in the mix; they made the postseason. So now the question is what do you do with some of the draft capital you have and some of the older assets that you have? How do you utilize them? And, one thing I like about Ken Hughes is he always says, like, he's not going to just make a trade for the sake of making one. And I know that some general managers will panic. They will think, okay, it's time to make that next move. It's time to step up. But the funny thing is here, Terry, is that the Canadiens, they're not guaranteed to go back to the postseason. again. I mean, let's be real here. The New York Rangers, I don't know how downhill they're going to go, but they're still a pretty good team, right? The Islanders, who knows what the deal is with them? The Boston Bruins, who knows what the deal is with them? But at the end of the day, there's still a lot of competitive teams in the Eastern Conference that will be absolutely battling for the final few spots there in the wild card. And, obviously from where I'm sitting, if the Canadiens crack the postseason again, it'll be one of the two wild card spots, or, if everything goes unbelievably right, it could be the third spot in the Atlantic. So I do think they need to use some draft capital. And that's why I think the first couple moves we're going to see, if not just one or two, will be at the actual draft itself. I think we'll see a handful of trades made the day of the draft from Kent Hughes and the Montreal Canadiens. I'd like to see them get rid of some of those third round picks. I think that first and second round picks obviously hold high value, but as we've seen from some teams over the years, in Florida and Tampa Bay in particular, Vegas as well, teams that have had success, those third round picks, not that they're not useful, because a lot of very talented players have come out of the third round, but those are picks that you can use to kind of shop for good players and for additional players. And I think that those third round picks, Terry, could be used for some more vets in the lineup. And when I say vets, not players that are on their way out of the league, but players that aren't 23 years old. I think right now the Montreal Canadiens, they need to find I mean, it's very simple to say this, but they'd love to have more Josh Andersons. Like, for Josh Anderson, how ripped he got by Montreal fans. And, I was probably there last year doing the same thing. I like him as a player, but as a physical presence in the playoffs, we saw what he was able to do. He was the only one that could really go at it with Tom Wilson. So using some of those third round picks to go pick up kind of a guy that's been around the block, been in the league for a few years, and can kind of be that presence. And, you've got guys like Demidov that are coming into the league, Lane Hudson, small player. And, obviously Caulfield and Suzuki have been around the block for several years at this point, but I'd like to see those third round picks be used to pick up a guy that's been around the block for a handful of years, but could come in and contribute right away.
Awesome. One thing I got to say, you just mentioned Lane Hudson. His movement ability kind of helps with like the fact of not being like the biggest guy, is that he's able to just he's able to outmaneuver guys. Yeah. And you're just like, how did he do that? So like, that's just a great skill to have.
Yeah. I mean, like, the thing is with him is that he's so good at dodging, and he might not be physical, but he's good with his stick as well. But I just think that they've done such a good job of building through the draft. This is the thing about a team like Toronto or Montreal, and you even look at Edmonton. Like, they did stack up several picks for years, so we can't deny that. Same thing with the Leafs, and now the Habs did it over the last 4 years, we'd say, particularly kind of accepting the rebuild position. But it's hard for these Canadian markets to buy into a rebuild because the fan bases don't want it, and the owners don't want it. But now that they have the young core, and you look at, what's going on in Laval as well, I think it is time for Kent Hughes to carefully go ahead and pick up a few guys throughout the NHL. And I think they've done enough through the draft. I think that the success range now, and let's not forget, they burnt a year, Terry, of Demidov, his entry-level contract, right? And obviously it was great. I mean, what a goal and an assist in his first game as a Hab. And then he just kept on going after that. He did well in the playoffs. They're going to need this window of the next few years to be pretty good. It's not like in 2 years' time, getting bounced in the first round will be acceptable anymore. There's going to be a window where they're going to have to spend some money, whether it's money or picks or whatever it might be. So everybody has their own window. And I feel like for this Canadiens team, because once they have to pay Ivan Demidov, then it's going to be like, wow, we're going to become one of those teams that I used to make fun of, because there's going to be a lot of contracts and a lot of guys that want to get paid.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to go on to the second segment here, which is free agents, cap space and free agents. The Habs do have quite a few names in this list. Of course, 4 UFAs who may definitely find themselves on other teams. And then with the cap space situation, this is not including Carey Price being on LTIR, which if the Habs do that, they'll have an extra $10.5 million to spend. we'll talk more about that later on in the show. But at this moment, $6 million in cap space with that Carey Price contract kind of in limbo there. Looking at the RFAs, Jakub Dobeš, I loved what I saw from him last year as the Habs backup. Obviously, he had that really great start to his career. I was betting on him, betting on the Habs at that point, and he really fitted well as backup for the Habs. I think his performance pretty much seals the deal for Caden Primo, who did not have success last year and hasn't really had a lot of success in the NHL in general. He is an RFA. I think the Habs could most likely move on from him, and I don't think it will really hurt the organization. The other two RFAs, I think you sign them to cheap contracts. I don't think they're going to break the bank. And you get them signed. And the 4 UFAs, I think maybe all find different teams. But maybe you'll disagree with me, Andrew. What do you think here? Free agents for the Habs, who do you most want them to sign here in this offseason? Resign.
Yeah, I'm curious what's going to happen with Caden Primo. Apparently, like 2 years ago, they were skeptical to put him on waivers because apparently there was a team that would have taken him. I think it was his old man's old team, Philadelphia. But then the thing is about Primo, it's astonishing, Terry, because he's just proven how much of a different goalie he can be in the NHL versus in the AHL. And it's tough because you know what? When it comes down to it, obviously the skill level is, incredibly higher. But at the end of the day, it seems like it's almost mental warfare. He's just goes down to the AHL. When he got sent down and Dobeš got sent up, I think we saw Primo go like 7-0 to start, his return to the AHL. So it's like something clicks when he goes down there. So at the end of the day, Jacob Fowler's down there with the AHL now, Laval Rocket. They're still in the playoffs as we speak right now, recording this. And the end of the day, they're going to want Fowler to be the developmental guy down there. So they're going to have to do something with Primo. And obviously, Primo has been around the block for a handful of years now. I'm sure he's going to want one more kick at the can as far as NHL goaltending is concerned, or he'll end up being a lifer in the AHL or going somewhere else, quite honestly. So I think he gets moved. I think Jakub Dobeš has solidified himself as the backup next year behind Samuel Montembeault, and Montembeault played great down the stretch. I think it always amazes me. Like the Habs fans are very hard on Montembeault, which is shocking because usually they're a little bit nicer to the Quebec-born players. I think that's a pretty obvious thing to say. Hopefully not criticized to say that, but Montembeault had a great stretch down the last couple of weeks there of the regular season. He did get hurt in the playoffs, and then Dobeš came in and I thought played respectably. So I think he earns that back. As far as Armia and Dvorak are concerned, Terry, I know I'm not answering the question properly, I guess, with this, but I think one of them get returns. I don't think both. I think one of them. The funny thing is, I've also heard rumors that teams have been asking about both of them at the same time, which is kind of funny because I think the Habs want to hold on to one of them and get rid of the other. So we'll see what ends up happening. Dvorak, I mean, he was a good playoff guy for them, but at the end of the day, you can only have guys be shut down and that's it so much. That's the problem is like he's a good shutdown guy, not really going to score for you, not really going to create plays. He's just going to be a good face-off guy and a good, defensive player. And I think at the end of the day, I think about, players in Laval that could take his spot or a player they could trade for that could take his spot. That's probably just more valuable. So for a guy like Christian Dvorak, I think Yoel Armia is probably the guy. You think he's going to create more offense for them. And I just think he's been with them for quite some time, so he probably deserves that. Obviously, David Savard, he's retiring, so happy to see him hopefully stay with the team. Heineman, I'm really impressed with him. I think he has the ability to actually work his way up into the lineup, if not be a really quality fourth liner. And then the Jaden Struble is interesting to me because, when I look at Struble, you see a guy that's, I think, reliable. Like that's the best way to describe him is like the thing is though, he's not going to do anything that's going to pop. And when Jack I got, implemented into the series against Washington in game 3, um, this was one of those things where they just needed somebody that was going to create something. And if you tuned into, national media in Canada or the States, everybody was talking about Jack Guy. He was scaling the red line, taunting Tom Wilson and being some type of presence, making hits. I don't like that St. Louis has tried to kind of change who he is. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be a guy that plays bottom pairing minutes as a defenseman, you at least need to bring something. And we've heard people tell us that Struble has the ability to be physical, but he's been in like 2 career fights in the NHL. He's not hitting every game. I just am not really convinced that his future with the Canadiens long term is there, just because if he's going to be a bottom 2 guy, like David Savard was a veteran, so he had that going for him, a leader on the team, and he would block a million shots a game. So he might not have been the most athletic with his last year and his aging, body, but at least that's what he had going for him. So I'm interested to see what ends up happening with the defensive core and what happens with Jaden Struble long term. I like the guy, but I just think that if you're going to play that many minutes, you might as well have a Jack guy play that many minutes and at least bring some toughness.
Okay, so maybe he's involved in some kind of trade. Maybe he's a trade piece that you use with some of the draft picks to try and get someone. We're going to move on to the next segment, which is taking a look at the projected lineup as assuming that all RFAs are signed and that none of the UFAs that the Habs have are signed. This is what the projected lineup would look like. And when I look at it, I don't think this is an awful forward lineup. I don't think that the Habs really have to rush out and try to improve. Obviously, Slavkovsky, Suzuki, and Caulfield, we've seen the chemistry that top line has together. Newhook and Demidov on the second line. Kirby Dach, of course, is so much injury history that, yes, he's there, but is he actually going to be there is the question. So, yes, he's on the screen here, but how often is he actually going to play? And then, obviously, if you take him out of the lineup, then there's a hole in the top 6. Third line, I think, is great. Jake Evans was cashing for me. He had a nice streak during the season. I was cashing big plus money bets for me, shorthanded goals and that kind of stuff. So he was making me money during the season. I think that's a pretty decent third line. Then you've got some younger guys there in the fourth line with Patrick Laine, who I don't really know if he's a fourth line guy, but this is obviously just projections. You have some other guys there, Joshua Waugh and Owen Beck. But overall, if the Habs do go into the regular season with this forward group, I don't think it's awful at all. I think it's still a team that's going to compete. Demidov, instead of going home to Russia and spending the summer at home, has been focusing on the upcoming season, staying in Montreal, practicing. And that shows a lot about the kind of player he is, that he's going to do that. So I've been a big fan of his. As Andrew said, he scored in his first game, and I had that circled, gave it out on the show. I was super happy to cash with him. So I think he's going to have a big year next year. And that's the thing about the Habs is they made the playoffs last year, but they still have a lot of young players. And as these young players continue to play more games and get more experience, they're going to improve. So that's another reason why I don't think the Habs need to rush out and sign a bunch of players, in my opinion, because I think some of these young guys are going to take that next step. And overall, I like this forward group. Andrew, what do you think here? Obviously, these lines are not going to be how it is on opening night. Of course, there's free agents that are going to be signed for every team, but this is just projections. And it'll be fun to look at when the free agency in summer is over, how the projections will look, which we'll get to in a few months. But what do you think about this lineup overall in the forward group for the Habs?
I think it's a really big year for Kirby Dach. I think I remember coming on your show before the season started, and we talked about how big of a year it is for Kirby Dach, and he gets injured again. Kent Hughes said it as well. It's a shame, but then again, it's a business, right? That's what this ultimately is. And Kirby Dach can't stay healthy. I mean, he had that horrific injury 2 years ago, and he goes ahead and he hurts himself again this year. It's really sad to see, but they need him to be an impactful player offensively. But not only that, if they need him to be reliable defensively. I'll put it this way. I don't think he's best to be suited as a centerman. Same thing that I don't think Alex Newhook is best suited as a centerman. Both those players Kirby Dach was supposed to be the second line center for the time being, but he got injured. Newhook had to turn into that role. I think Newhook on a good team is a third line winger. On a great team, he is a really good fourth line winger. So looking at this team right now, I think that, having Kapanen slotted in there with Heineman, like I said, I'm really a big fan of Heineman. He took a lot of good strides at the World Hockey Championships as well. Patrick Laine, I feel like a lot of people were hard on him. The guy still scored 20 plus goals. The guy scored a ton of power play goals. He was injured at the start of the season. He was coming off an injury and then got injured again. Maybe his cardio wasn't there. Maybe his skating didn't look great. The big test is going to be how he looked at the start of the season with a full summer of training. That's going to be the biggest test, and people can be critical then once they see what he looks like then. But Demidov is the obvious guy, but the biggest thing is surrounding him with playmakers, surrounding him with guys that can score, give the puck to him. And one thing I love about Demidov, and you've seen it, Terry, whether it's KHL highlights or in the NHL so far, is he's not a selfish player at all. He seems to really be buying into, like, he just wants the team to have success. Like that first NHL assist he had, like kind of moving around laterally, the great skating ability he has, and then setting up Newhook in the slot. That was perfect. Some players might have been selfish and tried to create a shot for themselves. That wasn't what Demidov did. Jake Evans, he was great up until he signed his contract, and then he kind of slowed up a little bit. But I think that we just need the bottom six to be a little bit better offensively. We trust what they bring. They're good 200-foot players, all of these guys. Josh Anderson pretty much cemented himself as a fan favorite during the playoffs against the Capitals. The biggest thing about the Montreal Canadiens, and I will stand on this for the next 365 days, the biggest thing for the Canadiens is their second line, because they pretty much didn't have one last year. Their second line was their third line. Their second line was their fourth line, because their second line was their worst line all year long. Kirby Dach barely played this season, and he had one of the league's worst plus minuses. Alex Newhook is a good player, but he's no offensive threat. So they'll have to get better on their second line in order to improve this year.
Perfect segue into our next few screens here, which are taking a look at some of the top UFAs and RFAs. So you said a second line guy. We'll quickly zip through these. Are there any guys here on this list on the screen that you think the Habs should try to sign in free agency?
I saw a name getting floated out on the Sick podcast. I think it was Brian Wild and Tony Marinaro, and it was Nikolai Ehlers. And I think he'd be a really good guy because he's a player that kind of plays with some, I don't know if grit's the word to use, but he plays with intensity, I think is the best word to use. He's a goal scorer. He's a playmaker. He's unbelievably fast, which is the Habs brand of hockey. But he's also not scared of physicality. He isn't the biggest player, not a rough and tough type of guy, but man, oh man, can he skate, and is he willing to go to the corners? Absolutely. And I think he fits that exact age that I was looking at and talking about earlier, Terry, where, he's not 35 like Jamie Benn, but he's 29 years old. He's been around the block. He's been in the league for years. But at the end of the day, if you sign him, it's not like he's going to the old man's home in a couple years. He still has a lot of great years left in him. So I think Ehlers could be a really good addition.
One of the things I'm thinking with Ehlers, though, he's the most heavily sought after left winger that there is.
Yeah.
So he is probably going to be overpaid, especially, as I didn't mention in this show, but I have in the other previous shows, the salary cap. $88 million this past season. It's going up to $95.5 million for this upcoming season. Then it's going up to 104, and then it's going up to 113.5. So we've never seen this with the cap increasing this much over a few year period. So a guy like Nikolai Ehlers, in my opinion, is probably going to be getting overpaid. He's probably going to be getting a gigantic contract. So I don't know if the Habs want to go that route. But if you can get him at a good price, of course, yeah, you definitely want to add him.
It's a funny conversation because a lot of people have been talking about, like, for the Habs, Nick Suzuki is the highest paid player on the team. Caulfield didn't get more than him, and Slavkovsky didn't get more than him. But obviously, Lane Hutson's contract is going to be more than his. Like, I mean, you can pretty much guarantee that. It'd be absolutely shocking if Lane Hutson doesn't get a handful more than Suzuki. So, but the big thing, Terry, as you mentioned about how much the cap is going up. So when you talk about, an overpay for Ehlers, sure, but at the end of the day, is it an overpay still if the cap is going up? Because that's the thing, is like, there's going to be some contracts handed out over the next summer or two that people are like shocked about. But it's always hard to compare this guy's contract to that guy's contract when they signed in different salary cap eras. You know what I mean? So that's what's
Oh
tough,
yeah,
is if Ehlers signs for, a high number with the Canadiens, people are saying, well, how is he making, $2.5 million more than Suzuki? Well, it's like, well, Suzuki signed, 4 years ago or 3 years ago, whatever it might have been, right? That's the tricky thing.
yeah. I think a lot of people are going to be like, you're on Twitter after free agency, you're going to see the word overpay trending. I'm
Yeah,
guaranteeing
yeah.
because people don't realize how the cap is going to go. And then one other name on this list, imagine Brad Marchand in a Habs jersey. Now, of course, nobody would ever think that would happen, but I didn't expect to see him in a Florida jersey. So never say never. I don't think he goes to Montreal, but crazier things have happened, right?
Oh man, that would be insane. But I don't know. Some people are saying Toronto or Florida with him. Like, I don't want to get into it, but a big topic that's trending today on Hockey X is the state tax stuff. And let's be real here, Sam Bennett and Marchand, they would take a big discount, whether it's the good weather, whether it's the good team, or whether it's the tax, to stay in a place like Florida. So be interesting to see where those type of guys go. I think Drouin, just to bring up Drouin for a second, Terry, I don't think that he wants to go anywhere. I think that he's kind of the guy that, I mean, he likes playing with Nate. I watched them play for years in junior. I don't think he really cares as much about the money as he does about, like, the stability. As long as he's getting something, I feel like he's happy to rock out in Colorado. He's got a good thing going there. Him and his girlfriend or wife are there together. Apparently they hang out with Nate all the time. Like, I feel like he's just happy to be there. I think, and I can't really see him chasing money, but we'll see what happens with them.
Yeah, a lot of these UFAs that we're going to go through might probably resign with their team, but um, they're on the list. Centers, you mentioned centers. Does anybody on this list catch your eye? For me, Ryan Donato is really interesting. I did not see him having a 31 goal, 31 assists year last year on the Blackhawks. So is he going to really continue that? He's 29. Is he going to keep that going the next couple of years? Or was this kind of a 1-year wonder? But then can you say it's a 1-year wonder when he did it with the Blackhawks? So I think Donato is probably going to get a nice deal somewhere. What about Claude Giroux? No, okay. Who on this list? Sam Bennett, of course. Everyone and their mother is talking about Sam Bennett. I mentioned on the Wild show how I would like the Wild to go after Sam Bennett, but anyone on this list that you think would be kind of the perfect fit for the Habs?
How funny would John Tavares on the Canadiens be? Like, that would be insane. I don't think that would happen. I can't see the Toronto kid that had Toronto pajamas on and blankets, that went from New York Islanders to Toronto, coming, putting the C on his chest, then going to Montreal. But that would be a fit. And you know what? He's 34 years old. I mentioned for most of the moves, I'd want to see a guy a little bit younger than that. But for a second line center, man, that would be perfect. I can't see Sam Bennett going anywhere besides resigning with Florida or going to Toronto. Brock Nelson, I don't know if he has that scoring touch enough that the Canadiens want for the second line center. He's responsible, but I don't know if he'd be a good fit with the Canadiens as of right now. I'm that might have been the worst trade that Colorado's made in years. Looking at that one there, Mikael Grenlund, I'm interested what his price tag is, but as you mentioned with Ryan Donato, I don't know if it's repeatable. But one thing that's nice about him is he kind of does play along that line. He does bring that edginess a little bit. He's not a soft guy. He's willing to go to the corners, score the greasy goals. He's not just a guy that will score the nice goals, which could be a nice fit for the Canadian second line.
Awesome. Continuing on along, right wingers. I don't know. Now, of course, everybody and their mothers talk about Mitch Marner. Of course, he's the number one most coveted free agent UFA on the market, assuming that he doesn't re-sign with Toronto. But I don't think that's happening personally. But do you see Mitch Marner going to the Habs? Do any of these top RFAs, right wingers, interest you?
Looking at these guys, I mean, I think Riley Smith would be a pretty cool addition. He's someone that, obviously going back to Vegas, I don't know if he'd want to go from Vegas to Montreal, but I like what he brings. I like his goal scoring ability. I think that he's really good at getting chemistry with anybody that he plays with. Really good 200-foot player. Good plus minus over his career. Someone that I would certainly be interested in. Brock Besser is actually someone that's been brought up on podcasts and in trade talk, or even in just signings talk. That could be someone that, again, look at that age for him, 28. That age range that I was looking at, Terry, that I think would be perfect, because on this list, besides Marner, 36, 34, 34, and 36, I feel like Besser fits into that right perfect kind of age mold that I was looking for there for the Montreal Canadiens. He'd be someone I'd have my eye on.
Awesome. And before we get to defensemen, RFAs. As I mentioned earlier, the Habs have full offer sheet capability. Don't know if we're going to see it. We haven't really seen it a lot in the past until the Blues decided to do it twice to Edmonton last year. And as I said in previous shows, is that the start of something, or is that kind of just a one-off? There's a lot of names in this list that I think a lot of teams would really like to have on their squad. Now, there are teams also on this list, like Marco Rossi, of course, that are on the trade block, and there's trade rumors galore. With Rossi, there's Peterka rumors, lots of stuff coming out of Buffalo with a lot of players wanting out with the direction of the team. So, as I mentioned, the Buffalo show, they're a team to watch. Andrew, is there anyone in this list that you would like to see the Habs acquire maybe by trade? Oh, and do you think they should try to offer sheet a guy like Mason McTavish? Now, of course, he would second line center, 22. He would be a great addition to the Habs, I think. But is there anyone on this list that you think the Habs should try to add this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, there's three guys that I look at there. Number one is the one you said with Mason McTavish. I mean, a couple of years under his belt as a pro. Wants out probably, I think, of Anaheim. I think, well, maybe doesn't want out, but maybe kind of like they can find other guys that are like him. They have a lot of players like him on the team already. He could be someone that they could definitely say, hey, you know what, we're going to move on from. He slots in perfectly with the Canadiens. Young guy, but experienced, proven goal scorer. Once again, same thing as what I was saying about some previous players. Not afraid to mix it up. He'll go to the corners. He'll go to the dirty areas. He'll score you a highlight goal, but he'll score you a dirty goal as well. Picture him, Patrick Laine, and Ivan Demidov on the same line together. That'd be a pretty damn good line. I wouldn't talk anybody off that one bit. Gabriel Velarde, that's kind of a dream shot, but I'm a big Velarde fan. I love that move that Winnipeg made, getting him. I really, really liked that. I think it was like for Pierre-Luc Dubois, there was some type of stuff there. That was a really good move. If they could somehow pay him, I really wouldn't talk anybody off that. He's got a real good shot. And then one that might shock some people, the 26-year-old Morgan Geekie. I wouldn't mind him, Terry. But again, just the kind of player that I think the Canadians need there, that plays with everything. He plays that 200-foot game. He, goes to the greasy areas. He'll score you different types of goals. And, I wouldn't imagine him floating around with a player like Demidov. He would stick up for him. He would go to the dirty areas, puck retrieve, get the puck out to Laine or Demidov or those guys. I feel like he actually would be a sneaky addition the Canadiens.
We're in pretty much agreement there. I singled out McTavish, and he was the first guy on your list there. So I think a guy like Ryan McLeod would be good as well, because he's got that little bit of grit. So lots of potential options here, and we'll see if the Habs either offer sheet somebody or try to make some kind of trade for one of these RFAs. Defensemen. Projected defenseman heading into the season, Mike Matheson and Lane Hutson. Of course, Lane Hutson on that top pair. I think he's pretty much going to be there for his whole career, assuming he stays with Montreal. I don't see him moving down the lineup anytime soon. Caden Gooley, Alexandre Carrier, second pair, Yekesh and Jane Struble, and then Logan Mailloux is kind of that depth extra in projections. I'm not going to lie and say that I'm an expert on all these guys, especially kind of like the bottom four. So I'm sure Andrew, you'll have much more of opinion here with this. But for me, looking at, I think the Habs could potentially want to upgrade, make an upgrade on defense, because while I do like their goaltending, they're an extremely tough division. And as you said, you can't take anything for granted, thinking, okay, you made the playoffs last year, you're good, you're going to make it again. Very, very tough division and very tough conference. So I think if the Habs want to make sure that they have a very good chance at making the playoffs again next year, I think maybe you want to make an upgrade some way here on at least in the bottom four of the defense. Andrew, what do you think here of the projected defense for the Habs this year?
Yeah, some people have mentioned like going out and spending and picking up a defenseman, but at the end of the day, I think that would be kind of a moot point because they drafted a guy like David Reinbacher so early. That was the Michkov draft, right? So I think it'd be tough to go pick up a guy, and spend money on a defenseman when you've got so many guys like Mailloux, like Reinbacher in the system, Engstrom as well, William Trudeau as well. So that's one of those things where, like I said, you're going to want to use your draft capital sometimes in trading to get older guys. But at the end of the day, they already did that kind of with Barron, with Carrier. And I think that Carrier is one of the best moves that Kent Hughes made. I'll be biased for a second. Barron's from literally like a couple streets away from where I am right now. I was cheering for Justin Barron because he's from my hometown, but it was a great trade. Alexandre Carrier being a Quebec native, Habs fans loved that. But at the end of the day, he also brought stability. He had that kind of perfect age I keep talking about where he's not super young, but he's not old. He brings that perfect stability. Not really a super dangerous offensive defenseman, but they don't need that. They've got Hudson, they've got Matheson, who shows signs of that. Gooley's actually brought that a lot more. Mailloux coming up, he brings that. So Gooley has been phenomenal. The big thing with him, Terry, he's got to stay healthy, man. Everybody loves this guy. He is unbelievable. He's out there against top pairings. Like, they want him out there against top pairings, and they want Matheson and Hudson out there to try and score if they're lined up together and help with the offense. So that's why I think Struble, I'm curious to see what happens, but I couldn't disagree more with anybody that thinks that Jack guy should get traded because he's one of one. Every team needs a player like him. They need to know the value. Fighting has gone down in the league. You need to have a tough guy. It sucks that their tough guy is a defenseman because if he goes to the box for 5 minutes, then you only have 5 defensemen for the next 5 minutes, which can be costly. But I think a guy like Mailloux or Reinbacher will have a chance at camp this coming year. That's what I believe. I think Struble might be on the move, or somebody like that could be on the move, or at least one of Reinbacher or Mailloux will be up in the press box. The big thing for a guy like Mailloux is he's shown such flashes. It's back-to-back AHL rookie all-star appearances, but it's the defensive ability. Sometimes he does make some careless plays in his own end, but he's very confident holding the puck. And I think the Canadiens honestly need a little bit more of that offensive ability. It can't just be Hudson on the blue line creating chances. So in summary, they've got a lot of guys in the Laval program that could come up. And I to be honest, wouldn't be shocked to see Reinbacher moved up before Mayu, just because I think he can play that physical game and he can be trusted in both ends a bit more. But they're going to want Mayu to do something, because some people actually think Mayu could be a trade piece, which does suck because he has that French-speaking ability. Quebec fans like that, whether people like to hear that or not. But I've actually heard rumblings of him being in a trade there, because they're not going to trade away Reinbacher. He's their 5th overall pick from a few years ago. So Mayu could be someone, if they go out and get like a number 2 center that's really, really highly sought after player, they're probably going to have to move a player like Mayu.
Okay. Reinbacher, I don't have him on the sheet on the screen here because what I was reading is that he's projected to spend most of the time in the AHL next year. Now, of course, that could definitely change. Having a great training camp, he could definitely make the roster. So, and then obviously I used Puckpedia for projections here, and they have Mayu as the guy in the press box. But that's the fun thing about looking at the lineup right now, is when we look at it in a few months for the previews for next year, things are going to look a lot different for a lot of the teams. UFA defensemen, of course, these are the top scoring defensemen. I like you just said, and I kind of thought maybe a bottom 4 type guy would be a guy that the Habs might look to add. So these guys wanted to apply there. And then you kind of just said that you don't really think they need to make much of improvements, right, on the defense. So maybe none of these guys would interest you. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's just like I said, I'm really of the belief that for their defensemen, for the most part, as of right now, I think they'll probably stick with what they have. I have heard, like, there were some people that were saying the Habs should go out there and try and get Noah Dobson. But it's like, man, if you go and do that, what are you spending? What are you trading away to get him? Defense was a problem at some points in the year, and I know that there's only so many young guys that can be there, because here's the thing. The only veteran on the team, as far as like real vet now, is going to be, the only vet defenseman is going to be Mike Matheson. And I'm sure you'd agree with me, Terry, that probably 2 out of your 6 on the ice defensemen should be older players. It's tough and Caden Gooley sometimes plays like a veteran. Some of these guys play like they've been around the block, but it wouldn't hurt this team to have another guy out there. I guess Carrier is an older guy, so he'll probably act as that, but it wouldn't hurt. But looking at this list, I'm not sure it'd be worth it for the Canadiens to go out and grab one of these guys. I think they don't want to rush. They made the playoffs this year. They were competitive-ish, lost in 5, but I think a guy like Mayu or Reinbacher or Engstrom, one of these guys, probably bringing them up is more valuable than trading for a 30-year-old.
Makes sense.
We'll see. Who knows what's going to happen on draft day? They could trade for a defenseman that's unbelievable, that catches all of us off guard.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to do these shows, is because is to be able to take a look and see what happens after the off season and see what the teams look like then. Goaltending, Montembeault starter, Jakub Dobeš backup. I don't think that goaltending is an issue for the Habs. I don't think they really have to go out and look at upgrading. Of course, if there's issues during the season, as you said, they do have a guy down there in Laval, but if they do want to go and get that experience back up, there's a ton of guys available, and then you can definitely go and get that backup third guy if you need him during the season. So I think goaltending wise, I think the Habs are pretty set. What do you think here, Andrew? Montembeault, Dobeš, do the Habs need to go out and get a UFA goaltender?
Yeah, I've seen some crazy takes out there. Some people were saying to send Dobeš down to be the guy with Fowler, and then move Primo to a different team, and then go pick up a veteran AHL guy. I don't know how I feel about that, because I think Dobeš looked so comfortable in all of his starts. I feel like he established himself. The guy looks so calm. I mean, what did he go, Terry? 6-0 in his first 6 NHL starts? Unbelievable. And they were against like really, really good teams as well. Marty St. Louis was pretty much giving him all the hard matchups, and Sam Montembeault the easier ones. during that span that Dobish first got called up. So I wouldn't be shocked to see them pull something like that. But at the end of the day, it felt pretty nice for me as a fan in the second half of the season to know that, hey, Dobish is out there. We could get a win. Let's be honest. I mean, when Primo had any starts for the Canadiens early in the season, there wasn't a single soul that felt confident in the team. And I know that's sad to say, but that's just a fact.
Yeah, I agree with you. I
feel bad saying that, but
well, he's just he hasn't shown any reason for anybody to have any belief. Like he hasn't played well, especially I think he played in one start last year, and it was awful. So
yeah.
or played in one game last year. Goaltenders available, top UFAs, top RFAs, and if you look at the bottom of the RFAs, you'll notice that Dobish is there as one of the top RFA goaltenders available. I don't know if someone's going to go and offer sheet him, but hey, you never know. UFA goaltenders, a lot of veteran guys there. Like I said, I don't really think the Habs need to go out and get any of these guys. I liked what I saw from Dobish last year. Montembeault is I think he's established himself for the starter at this point. Now, of course, things happen with goaltenders. 1 year a goaltender will be really good. The next year they might not be. So goaltending is that kind of position where you may need to make some moves at some point during the year. But heading into the off season, I think the Habs are pretty set goaltending wise. Andrew, anyone in this list that you think the Habs should add in the off season goaltending wise?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think, like I said, I wouldn't be, overly shocked if they ended up going with the whole Fowler and Dobish thing in Laval. Although I think that it would be stupid. I wouldn't be shocked if that did happen. I think Dobish belongs as the number 2 guy. But if they do decide to do the thing that I keep talking to people are talking about them doing, it would be an older guy on this list. It would be one of the older guys to come sit on the bench and play 25 games. That's what it would be. So I can't see Big Save Dave coming to Montreal. I don't think they're getting Samsonov. James Reimer, 37 years old. I'd be shocked to see some of these guys, come over to Montreal. But the only thing I could really look at is if they decide to send Dobish down to the AHL to just work it with Jacob Fowler, then they're going to pick up an older guy. But other than that, I can't see that really being the case. So I think they're pretty set.
A shocking stat. James Reimer had the best goaltending numbers on the Buffalo Sabres last year.
Wow.
He had better numbers than Levi and better numbers than Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. So maybe 37-year-old Reimer is going to be a hot commodity on the free agent market this year. No, I'm kidding, of course. My off-season tasks. Kind of mentioned it earlier about Carey Price, and for Habs fans watching the preview that are probably wondering, why does he have Carey Price on the thumbnail of the video? Carey Price, of course, in the final year of his contract, and the Habs can put him on LTIR and get that extra cap space. But Montreal is in a situation here with a lot of their young players have bonuses. And if the Habs do keep Carey Price's contract and they put him on LTIR and then they have to pay all the bonuses that they're expected to, they're going to have a cap overage, which is going to affect them next year. So really, this team, a bright future. And yes, the cap is going up a lot, but you don't want to have those unnecessary cap restraints when you're heading into your period where you want to start adding guys. So there are teams that will take Carey Price's contract in real dollars. From what I'm reading, it's approximately $2 million, but a lot of that is paid. Insurance pays for that. So moving Carey Price's contract would benefit the Habs. And then it would benefit a team that doesn't want to have to spend to the salary floor, because we've been talking a lot about the salary cap, but the salary floor has also risen. So those teams that are rebuilding and looking to the future and piling up draft picks, that don't want to spend a ton of money, a guy like Carey Price will put them over, will get them 10.5 million towards their cap hit, but isn't actually going to cost them 10.5 real dollars. So benefits the Habs, benefits a team like maybe San Jose or Chicago. So I do think that the Habs should look at trading Carey Price's contract. And I know just thought of trading Carey Price. Of course, he's not playing anymore, but I know some Habs fans might just not want to see that. But I think it would be a good move for the Habs in the offseason. Resign the RFAs they have, except Primo. I think look to move him elsewhere. It hasn't been a good fit. Maybe he will find his game on another squad, or maybe he's just a career AHL goaltender. And then I thought making a small upgrade on defense, whether by trade while moving a guy, just to bolster that defensive group, are my thoughts. And then we'll move to Andrew, and I'll let you, Andrew, let the people know your off-season tasks for the Habs this off-season.
My off-season tasks: find a second line center, and it's got to be someone that fits that mold of whether it's, kind of like that mid 20s, late 20s, not a rookie, not a young guy, but not too old either, to fit that perfect mold second line. Somebody to play alongside Demidov is crucial. I don't trust Kirby Dach as a second line center. I don't trust him as far as staying out of the injuries. And I also don't think he's a good two-way center. I think he's more responsible and offensive as a winger. Add a sandpaper bottom six forward. Look, you can't all play like Josh Anderson, but they need another tough guy. I mean, everybody in the league right now would love a player like Mathieu Olivier. Olivier is awesome. The guy's like the heavyweight champion of the NHL, one of the best, like the best fighter probably, and he scores goals. That's a dream. We can't get a guy like that, but somebody else that is willing to get on the forecheck, lay some hits, be physical, but also can contribute offensively. You can't just be one and not the other. We'll look for a sandpaper bottom six forward. And then the third one, evaluate Laval for call-ups. Figure out who's going to be able to crack the team. Once the team is solidified, who are going to be the players that could be called up during the season. What about Joshua Roy, who is a guy who thought he was going to make the team last year and got cut at training camp? What about Owen Beck? What about Florian Jacki? I don't know if he's going to make the team or not, but man, that guy is impressing in Laval right now. Arbor Jacki's younger brother. He had like 150 penalty minutes and over 20 goals this year in Laval. He's kind of that sandpaper bottom six forward that I'm talking about that would have been pretty sweet to have in the playoffs this year. Those are some things I'm looking for this summer.
Perfect. Awesome. And that is the Montreal Canadiens off-season preview show. We broke down everything you need for this upcoming season, the upcoming off-season. Leave in the comments below your thoughts. What do the Habs need to do this off-season? What do they need to add? What kind of changes they need to make? And of course, give Andrew a follow. His X link is in the description below. And Andrew, thanks for coming on with me. I hope to have you on in a couple months to take a look at the upcoming season and get more into the betting stuff with, of course, futures and that kind of stuff. But thanks for joining me. And
yeah, a lot of fun, Terry. A lot of fun. And it's going to make it a lot more fun when we see all the moves that get made, and then we're talking here in a couple months again.
Exactly. Thanks for watching, everyone, and we will see you all on the next off-season preview show.